Good morning, everyone. I tried to do this Maxime Bernier Twitter roundup last night and it just didn't work out, so here I am doing it again. Elizabeth May starts us off this morning as Maxime Bernier responds to this tweet, and I want you to notice the likes because it's important. Here we go. Due to extreme weather events in Winnipeg, Green Party press conference this AM has changed location. Climate crisis is hitting all parts of Canada, and no other party has a plan to avert catastrophic impacts. GPC, Green Party of Canada, climate mission possible. And that tweet was sent on the 21st of September, 9:57 a.m., almost 10 a.m., and 100 retweets and 370 likes for a party polling between 10 and 15% depending on the poll you look at. Interesting, right? Okay, here's Mr. Bernier's response. Emergency! Crisis! It's been raining a lot in Winnipeg. This has never happened before. We must destroy our economy to prevent heavy rain from ever happening again. That tweet was sent at 7:24 p.m. on the same day, September 21st, so almost 12 hours later, 10 hours later, let's say. 1.4 thousand retweets, so 1,400 retweets, and 4,600 likes. And somebody else's, I'll give them credit because it wasn't me that put this together necessarily, but it is worth noting. It is worth noting. Now, Twitter's not weighted. So weighted means if you're a certain age or a certain demographic, they'll weight your vote in a different way, right? If they have lots of people who are 55 to 64, then your vote may count for less. If they've got a lot of people who are 25 to 34 and you're part of that group as well, your vote may count for less, etc. So it doesn't map directly onto polls. It can't do that, right? Twitter can't do that. It's not just Canada either. But it's interesting to note who else is following these. Maxime Bernier, Elizabeth May. No, sure, lots of people could be. Lots of international people could be. I'm sure that there are Americans who follow me. In fact, I know there are. And that's okay. But it's interesting to pay attention to, right? Like this is happening and this is current. This is the new public square, right? Here's the French language version, and it's got almost as many likes as Elizabeth May's version and almost the same amount of retweets. Elizabeth May had 100. Mr. Bernier's French version has 99. So that's worth taking note of. This is also worth mentioning. Maxime Bernier says, quote, not so long ago, all sides agreed we must not confuse short-term weather events and climate. But climate alarmists have moved the goalpost again. Now they're pointing to every hurricane, flood, drought, snowstorm, heat wave, or cold snap as proof the world is ending. Yeah, and we just saw that with Elizabeth May, right? Like that's on the same day. Rain, climate crisis. It's raining, and it rains in Winnipeg. And a lot of the responses on this original tweet here basically say the same thing. I did a video recently pointing this out on these tweets, and yeah, the comment section was not as supportive as you might think, right? It's very interesting in the context of our current leadership. Race, very interesting in the context of our current election. And yeah, I mean, the polls are not reflecting at all the Twitter engagement across the board, right? Very, very notable. Here's Mr. Bernier, and he says, moving on with our Twitter roundup, official multiculturalism is based on the idea that there's no unified Canadian society and no distinct Canadian identity to integrate into, and that we are just a collection of ethnic and religious tribes living side by side. Now, I'm not going to play this video because the audio on Twitter is terrible and it always makes it really quiet, and I'm not going to play it. But I want to say I like this video, and I like this video for a few reasons. One, it's short, 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 20 seconds. If you could make it shorter, that's better. Under 2 minutes would be good. It's concise. It's to the point. It says one thing and it's speaking to one thing, and it's simple. And I think that focus is necessary for an effective video, right? If you start talking about too many things, well, people are going to lose interest and walk off halfway through or a quarter of the way through, or when you move from the climate change part to the official multiculturalism part. Right? But I like this video because it stays focused and it just talks about one policy plank, and a policy plank that can be spoken to well by Bernier. And really, that's most of the policy planks. When he speaks about them, he speaks about them well. So do more of these videos. It's focused and it doesn't tear down the other parties. It just talks about the People's Party platform. Canadians like that. Canadians don't like politicians who tear down other politicians. They like politicians who say, this is my plan and this is why my plan will work well. Do more of these videos. Do one for every policy plank. Do it just like this, but shorter. A hard 2 minutes. If you can make it 1:30, make it 1:30. Cut out the stuff that doesn't need to be there. It's excellent. It could be a little bit better, but this one's a good start. I like it. Watch the video, links in the description. Here's the next tweet. Mr. Bernier says, "That's fairness and respect from the People's Party of Canada volunteer in Prince Albert. The PPC volunteer put the signs back up himself, even though it felt odd putting up a sign for another party's campaign." And here's the newspaper article. Prince Albert Daily Herald wanted to print this. They say, PA, Prince Albert candidates call for respect after Liberal Party campaign signs pulled down and thrown aside. And I'm just editorializing a bit here, but it says, on Saturday, a People's Party of Canada, PPC, volunteer noticed that 6 Liberal Party campaign signs on the western part of Marquee Road had been pulled down and thrown aside. The volunteer, who was scouting potential locations to place PPC signs, also said Liberal signs were knocked over near Victoria Hospital, with one reportedly being thrown into a nearby grove of trees. According to the Facebook post on Facebook, the PPC volunteer put the signs back up himself, even though it, quote, felt odd putting up a sign for another party's campaign. There you go. Heart of gold. That's Canadian. That's Canadian. That's something that, not that I would expect, but hearing about it, I think to myself, yeah, we do that, because we do that. Good job. Maxime Bernier carries on, and this was 6:30 a.m., September 24th. That was yesterday. He says, more promises to intrude on provincial jurisdiction when Ottawa is not even able to manage its own affairs properly without deficits. The People's Party of Canada will respect our constitution and provincial autonomy. And this is in response to the Liberals promising to build a national Pharmacare program. They've been promising a national Pharmacare program for a very long time. And, well, not promising, but it's been part of the Canada-wide discussion since Mr. Multicultural brought it up in the 2011 election and was again discussed in 2015. Not lots of movement on it, but the NDP has been very committed to it, and it looks like now the Liberals are taking planks from the NDP, which, I mean, I guess happens in Canada. Here's Maxime Bernier on Greta. He says, well, actually it's Cochrane, but Bernier is tweeting out the article and the quote. Cochrane, quote, "Kids of all ages are growing up as anxious political activists, appearing in the media as representatives of causes and ideologies, participating in strikes, walkouts, speaking engagements, lectures, and ideological battles over issues they cannot possibly understand." And here's the National Post article. I'm not going to read it right now, but I am going to say, I've worked with 16-year-old kids on the spectrum. If they had the affect that Greta had when she's being interviewed, I would stop the interview. I would put an end to it, because it's not fair to do that to a child, especially a child who's having a hard time handling the attention and the flashing and the loud noises, et cetera, et cetera. She looks like she's not having a good time of it. And she is a child. She should be protected, not thrown to the forefront of this very fraught political battle. One has to wonder what the adults in charge are thinking, right? I've got an idea. This tweet was sent out yesterday too. People with Money. People with Money reports on September 23rd that Greta Thunberg is the highest paid activist in the world, pulling in an astonishing $46 million between August 2018 and August 2019. Nearly 20 million lead over her closest competition. Wow, that might encourage you to let her speak, right? It's interesting though. Interesting to note, right? $46 million in a year. Can you do that? How about if you get really, really on board with the climate change idea? Can you do that then? Probably not. Probably not. How does Greta do that? Interesting. Bernier carries on. Maxime Bernier says addressing Indigenous water issues is a first priority if elected. I covered this yesterday. I thought it was worth its own video. And Jody Wilson-Raybould even weighs in. She released a book recently, so she was interviewed by the newspaper, which I included. She was speaking about reform to the Indian Act, and Maxime Bernier is the only leader talking about that. I wonder if Miss Wilson-Raybould will reach across the aisle and talk to the People's Party leader to see if they could get something done together. Interesting, right? Here is Maxime Bernier continuing on. This is the Bay Today, North Bay news article that I reported on yesterday. It says People's Party of Canada will explore options to replace the Indian Act if elected. And the Indian Act was enacted in 1876. I believe yesterday I misspoke, or the article was wrong and said 1976. It's a lot older than 1976. So I apologize for not catching that on the first read through. I should have. Maxime Bernier continues on. Instead of covering our policies, some media are still trying to link the People's Party of Canada to racism and intolerance. This is despicable. So let me repeat. Our members and candidates come from all religions and ethnic backgrounds, and there's no room for bigotry in our party. And while all of that is true, we also, as far as I know, don't have a database listed of candidates who are ethnically different or not white or whatever. I think that it would be interesting or strange to compile a list of candidates who are are anything, right? Like if we had a list of non-white candidates and white candidates and Asian candidates, that would seem odd to me. I wonder if the other parties do this. Maxime Bernier speaks to this in another tweet. Here's that tweet. It says, we keep getting media requests like this. Last time it was about our candidate's sex life and our gender identity. Now it's about their skin color. No, we don't keep track of such things in our candidates database. They're all unique individuals fighting for a better Canada. So, on one side, we have a very diverse group of people within the People's Party of Canada as candidates. And you can see that across Twitter, across the images of the candidates that are on the People's Party website, etc. So it's interesting that this is persisting, even to the point where news organizations are reaching out and asking if there's any Black or Caribbean candidates that are running in the upcoming federal election. I mean, it's the same thing as the sexual orientation or gender identity. That's not something that people should necessarily be answering questions about, right? There are other things to worry about when electing a politician than their gender identity, their skin color, their all of those things, right? Whether they're Black or Caribbean, white or Asian, non-white, whatever. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter. The best person for the job should get the job, right? And doing stories about little tiny cut up groups of Canadians, well, doesn't help with unity, which I think is what Maxime Bernier has been talking about the whole time, unity. Here's the last one for this morning. It says, Maxime Bernier on BNN Bloomberg, finally a politician that can give concise, candid, honest answers to questions. He spoke about his platform and defended it while disparaging no one. Vote People's Party of Canada. The quality of leadership is not even close elsewhere. And I would agree, but I'm biased, and so you should know that. I am a candidate as well, so you should know that too. But here's what Maxime Bernier is saying and what I think about it. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope that was helpful. Don't forget to vote on October 21st and have a wonderful, wonderful day.